today in Rich in Relationship. We're going to talk about who do you need to be to have a truly intimate and fulfilling relationship. If we choose to act in a loving way, we'll recover the love in ourselves. And I want to be really clear that intimacy isn't just about sex. It's about feeling like you're safe. It's about really experiencing trust. Welcome to another episode of Rich in Relationship. And I'm your host, Rich Heller. And today we're going to talk about how emotion and intention create and contribute to intimacy. And I want to be really clear that intimacy isn't just about sex. It's about feeling like you're safe. It's about trusting, really experiencing trust. Not just thinking that you trust, but really experiencing trust in your relationship. It's about being vulnerable and letting your partner see the things you're not so proud of. Letting your partner see the side that you don't show other people because maybe you got some guilt or shame you need to clean up. And knowing that they're going to be okay with it and vice versa. Intimacy is about being in each other's presence, emotional warts, farts, burps, and all. And feeling safe and trusting and loving. And the first thing I want to make clear is that though there are actions we can take that will help us to be intimate, though we can have intimacy, we can't take action and have intimacy until we are in a place of intimacy. I'm introducing the concept to you of be, do, have. Right now, I want you to think about how this fits with the most recent series on toxicity. We spent a lot of time talking about how to manage other people's toxicity, which definitely doesn't make things feel safe or build trust. We talked about how to handle our own toxic emotions, and that is key and central to building safety and trust. And now we're going to talk about once you're managing those emotions, how you can begin to create safety, trust, vulnerability, and intimacy by being in a place that feels safe and caring. All right, be, do, have. Think of be, do, have as beginning, middle, and ending. The beginning of anything is the place that we are coming from. The actions that we take will have the flavor of where we're coming from. And the result, which is the have part, will tell us where we were coming from. If we feel like we're being caring and loving, and the result that we're getting is frustration, anger, hurt, and conflict, then we're probably not being what we think we are. And very often when I work with couples, I come across this a lot. I come across two people who say, I'm doing everything right, but they just keep messing it up. The road to healing from that space is to get that you may be doing everything right, but the place that you're coming from, the intention may be off. The emotion may be off. Now, I do give people advice like fake it till you make it, move a muscle, change a thought. That we can definitely alter our behaviors even when we're not feeling right. But the idea of altering our behaviors, the way we act, is not so much to prove to the other person that we're feeling loving. It's to do something that's loving so that we can recover that place of love in ourselves, right? We talk a lot at Rich in Relationship about love is not a feeling, it's a muscle. And what that means is when the other person is exploring some toxic feelings, we may be having a reaction to it that's not positive, but we're going to act in a way that's loving to get back in touch with that love in ourselves. If we act on our initial reaction, the triggered feeling, the little bit of toxicity in us, then what we're going to have is a toxic experience together. But when they behave in a way that appears toxic to us, have in a way that we experience as toxic, if we choose to act in a loving way, we'll recover the love in ourselves. Where we really want to be, though, is we want to be in a place where we're feeling secure. We want to be in a place where we're feeling confident. We want to be in a place where we're feeling love. We want to be in a place where we're coming from our faith in the future of our relationship and our partner. We want to be in a place where we know where we're going, emotionally be. Because when we're in that space of security, confidence, faith, fear, and hurt, there's very little room for that. When we're in that place of faith and confidence, and we're just building from that faith and confidence in a way that's loving, every action we take speaks that to the other person. I have a potential new client who I'm exchanging emails with right now, who his wife left him several months ago, and he wants to bring her back into his life or become a part of her life. The way that he's being about it, though, is he's afraid. The way that he's being about it is he's mad at her. The way that he's being about it is he feels totally unconfident. And every time he reaches out to her, he communicates from that place of insecurity, of fear, of neediness. And that just drives her further away. Well, that scenario happens in our relationships all the time. Now, in his case, the work that we're doing is helping him, or that we may do. He hasn't actually decided to work with me yet. The work that we may do together is to help him get back into that place of knowing exactly what it is he wants and knowing that every step he takes is taking him towards it. And in order to do that, he may have to let go of some old hurts and some limiting beliefs along the way, right? That's part of the process. Sometimes to be in that place of security, confidence, and faith, we need to let go of some old hurts. We need to let go of some old ideas. We need to let go of some old behaviors, behaves. Behavior is like a way of being that's manifested in a strategy. We need to let go of the behaviors in order to create new ones. All right, so let's talk more about relationships and how this occurs in your relationship today and why it's occurring in your relationship today. With not too many exceptions, we all grow thick skins or become distracted, or both. We talk a lot here on this podcast about when people fall in love, when they're vulnerable, they're showing up for each other 110%, and then they start having children, and all of a sudden there's this huge distraction from the relationship. They need to earn enough money to support the children, so they both, or one or both, start working a whole lot more. But they also need to take care of the children, so a whole lot of time and energy goes into taking the children, and there's no more time to feed the relationship. The relationship, the relationship is like a third person. It's like a corporation. When two people fall in love and make a commitment to a future together, create a vision and mission and have values, they've created an emotional corporation. And that thing has a life of its own. And like any corporation, if you don't keep feeding the corporation, any organization, it starts to crumble. Well, relationships, what happens is people have children and they start developing themselves as individuals. They start making money, one or both of them. They're taking care of the kids. They're barely taking care of themselves. Sometimes they're not taking care of themselves. It's the beginning of overwhelm. See our previous podcast. It's 2 episodes on overwhelm and how to recover from it. And when we stop feeding the relationship and we're distracted by kids and work, we get kind of thicker skins. There's not a lot of vulnerability or intimacy under those circumstances because all of our attention is elsewhere. And part of those thicker skins is one partner might come back from work and be a little irritable, and the other partner kind of deflects that irritability. They've got their thick skin and they kind of, instead of calling it out or instead of helping them to process it, they're focused on their own thing. They just kind of deflect it. Or maybe the other partner comes home from work and they've had a great day, and the partner who happened to be taking care of the kids when they came home has had a really bad time with the kids. And they start saying, why aren't you here more for the kids? And that partner who's been at work, instead of engaging in a fight, or instead of engaging in the question, or instead of engaging in the other person's hurt, sadness, and fear about their future, they deflect it. Our skin starts getting thick. And when our skin gets thick, we do that because we don't want to experience how the other person is being. And we don't want to really look at how we're being, right? With the intention that we've set up is we need to do everything we can to take care of these kids and kind of cohabitate. Then we wonder why we start fighting. The two people who were in love and who were in sync about everything start fighting. And the fights aren't just little fights. When those fights happen, that's where all that pent up emotion gets released. That's where we start being hurt. That's where we start being angry. That's where we start being frustrated. That's where we start being blaming. And in that space, there's no room for safety. There's no room for trust, right? That kind of communication destroys safety. That kind of communication destroys trust, destroys vulnerability, and ultimately kills the marriage. So in the previous episodes, we talked about how to manage our own toxic feelings. In this episode, I really want you to understand that even though not being completely aware of how you're being, the feelings that you're having, or the feelings that your partner's having in the past might have worked, everything functioned, it's what's really happening when you choose to be in a place where you're not paying attention to one another and your own emotions is you're drawing money from your relationship bank. And eventually you draw out so much money that the relationship goes into bankruptcy. First it goes into debt, and then it goes into bankruptcy. And when relationships go into bankruptcy, you either wake up and fix it or you get divorced. Well, I'm asking you to take a look at how you're being. If this sounds like how you're being in your relationship now, and if this is what you're having, this is what you're doing and having, this is how you're behaving, something's going to need to change or it ain't going to work. You're either going to end up living parallel lives until your kids go to college and have a great divorce, or you're going to be unsatisfied to the point where you get divorced now, or even worse, you're going to stay married for the rest of your lives, disconnected from one another, never really feeling emotionally fulfilled together. That would be like a nightmare. So the beginning is to start listening to yourself and asking yourself, what is my emotional state when my partner comes home and is feeling needy? What is my emotional state when my partner comes home and is feeling frustrated? What is my emotional state when my partner is feeling sad? What is my emotional state? Am I aware? Am I aware of my partner's emotional state? How aware is my partner of my emotional state? Are we in way outer orbits emotionally? What do we need to do? How do we need to be so that we can get closer together? And if we're not feeling close, what are the actions? What are the things that we need to do? What's the intention we need to set so that we can start to be intimate again? So we can intend our way into intimacy, but we can't magically be intimate overnight. I find myself wondering, what if if two people let go of a whole lot of old emotion at once? Well, that would help. That would help bring intimacy. That would up the level of intimacy. And here's the other thing about intimacy is kind of a never-ending journey. I think the fear and concern that many of us have about intimacy is, am I going to lose myself if I'm too intimate with the other person? And so it's this dance of, how do I stay in touch with who I am while really experiencing who they are? Intimacy is where you understand each other so much that you can finish each other's sentences, but it's not because you're the same person. It's because you understand one another so well. It's not about becoming the same person. It's not that you complete me nonsense. It's about really knowing and experiencing and being in harmony together. Well, if you're asking yourself these questions and you're finding that you're pretty far apart, and the outcome that you want to have is to be more intimate, the first step is to start building positive communication. So you can go back to the previous podcasts on how to manage their toxicity and how to manage your own toxicity. And then you can start to build positive communication. Positive communication on the most basic level is about communicating your feelings responsibly. Responsible feeling communication is, I am feeling this when this happens because something inside of me is triggered. It's not, I am feeling this when you do this because you're making me feel it. It's, I am feeling this when you do this because it brings up in me an old hurt or an old wound. That would be a way to talk about the other person's actions, but be responsible for the feeling I'm having is coming from this wound. And when you do this, it reminds me of this wound. That's responsible communication. And it's also about committed listening, which we've talked about a lot here. We also have a process that's pretty unique called the interview process, which is about empathetic listening. It's about taking committed listening on putting it on steroids. And some of this is up on the website. If you want to go to richinrelationships.com, we'll have that up there and you can download some of these tools. And if you're finding that you have a hard time using them, I find very often these tools, the first time around, feel to people like the first time you assemble a piece of IKEA furniture. The first time you do it. I assembled a grill yesterday and it was really easy. The reason why it was really easy is I assembled a much more complicated grill about 6 months earlier. So this grill was, the complicated grill I really struggled with. So sometimes when we get these tools, we really struggle with them. In fact, when I assembled that complicated grill, I really wish I had had some help. I actually did reach out for help, if you want to know the truth. I went on the internet and I looked to see what other people had posted. So if you're having trouble with these tools, you can go on the internet and see what resources there are. Or if you're on the Rich in Relationship website, I want you to feel free to reach out to me and I will be happy to give you a half hour to talk about the tools and how to use them. Some things you can do in the meantime, we're always punching these tools, is process those negative emotions, stay focused with mindfulness, meditation, and prayer. Journaling is going to help you to notice patterns and to lay out emotions. You want to work on emotional regulation, but just beware. Right? The challenge, the problem with emotional regulation, the challenge of emotional regulation is sometimes we regulate our emotions so that we don't have to experience them. And so I would not say to always use emotional regulation. If you are about to jump into a fight with your partner, use emotional regulation. If you're walking away from a fight, go beat a bed with a tennis racket, yell, scream, let out some emotions, actually have the emotions, right? We don't just want to regulate them. We need to have them and release them. And that's all in these previous podcasts about managing your own toxic emotions. But what I want you to get is that the first thing you need to do is set an intention. And the intention is, I am going to behave an intimate in a way that builds an intimate relationship. Just set that intention. And then number two, I'm going to come from that intention of love and commitment. I'm going to come from that and start laying in practices that are going to help rebuild safety and trust. I'm going to bring in caring communication. Caring communication is the vehicle for that. And then through that caring communication, you will slowly or quickly rebuild trust. As you let go of old emotions and old beliefs, you'll move faster. The faster you let go of the old stuff and re-strategize, the faster you're going to move towards intimacy. We're going to stay on this topic for a few more episodes. So I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Rich in Relationship, and have a happy tomorrow.